Professor Koto's advice is that teachers not try to teach everything about writing at the same time. There are just too many things. Content and organization appropriate for the register, cohesive development of ideas, spelling and punctuation, grammatical accuracy, and vocabulary, to name a few. Each of these need to be worked on and focused on individually through the process of writing. Professor Kotos also suggests giving students lots of opportunities for practice. She suggests that students be given assignments to write every day in a journal or a blog. It doesn't have to be a lot of writing, but it's the doing it every day aspect that is important. She suggests that teachers use writing assignments to help students learn, not only for grading. She suggests that teachers design tasks to simulate real communication that is relevant to the students. In other words, make students' writing interesting. She also suggests providing feedback regularly and selectively. This is a particularly interesting question. How much and how regular and how selective should the feedback be? It's clear that teachers providing feedback on every detail of everything students write is neither possible nor desirable for the students. But the balance of how much feedback and when feedback should be given and how feedback should be given is something that's very much a topic of research today. Finally, she suggested exploring the use of computer-generated feedback as well as peer feedback, as is possible in collaborative writing particularly. And finally, I didn't ask Professor Koto specifically about technology, but her advice was that teachers help students learn to write through different modalities and using a variety of technological tools. She suggested expanding opportunities for authentic communication with an audience, and this is something that can be done through the use of the internet. She suggested using technology tools to help students learn, and she pointed out that it's particularly important for teachers to learn what the tools can and cannot offer. Professor Koto's suggestions are a good way to bridge into the question of how technology can help. And we want to talk about a few different ways that technology can help in the writing process. First, we want to look at how teachers can create a collection of register-relevant texts that students can analyze for their assignment. As part of the planning process for writing, students need to see texts that are similar in audience and purpose to the ones they're going to write. Second, technology can help by helping teach students to search for examples on the internet to learn about different registers. Third, teachers should take advantage of the use of word processing to make writing a process. Fourth, students should be taught how to use grammar checking tools, and they need to learn what those tools can and cannot do. And then finally, technology is very useful for creating some assignments requiring the use of collaborative writing tools that allow students to work together. So let's take a look at some examples of each of these suggestions. First, students need to be able to look at examples of texts from the relevant register when they're planning to write something. And the internet, again, is an ideal place for teachers to find texts that they can use to introduce an assignment to allow students to do some analysis of the texts as they're planning their writing. Texts need to be at the right level and the right register in order to provide examples of the type of language that students can use in their own writing. The internet is full of examples, but for a lot of students, the level of the language of many of the texts found in professional journals, found on the internet, found in news sources on the internet is quite difficult. But the internet is full of lots of different types of texts. Recall our student from the very beginning of the lecture who was writing his essay on Barack Obama as a person that he admires. Well, the internet has plenty of texts about Barack Obama, and many of them are too difficult for a student at that level. But the internet also has texts. Actually, the example here is a text from Barack Obama himself. It's a tweet. It was one of his first tweets that I guess probably his first tweet that he produced after he left office of president. And the language has maybe a couple of challenges in it, but overall is not all that difficult. He writes, "Hi everybody, back to the original handle. Is this thing still on? Michelle and I are off on a quick vacation, and then we'll get back to work." So places like Twitter have examples of language that are perhaps usable to a lot of students at many different levels. That's just one example. There's quite a wide variety of language available on the internet. And reading activities provide a good opportunity to teach students about plagiarism as well. Because in the planning process, as we're teaching students to analyze texts and to get ideas for their writing, we also need to teach them how not to simply copy the language of others without using appropriate quotation and citation. So there are many lessons here to be learned through the use of texts found on the internet by teachers and used to build assignments for writing. Teachers can find texts on the internet, but in order to put the power in the students' hands, it's useful to teach the students how to search for their own example texts. Students can learn to search for and analyze their own example texts, depending on what they're trying to write. Hung Lee is a graduate student who wants to write a research article and submit it to a journal. Let's listen while she explains how she searches for relevant texts to help her.